It's 7 on the 7th.
7:07.
Yeah, on the 7th day of November 2024. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. We're living well, Sinio.
Yes, we are.
Yeah? You know, we've been talking about the bank that was voted as the best bank for private banking. Okay? And this is one that says, if you want to come and put your money in a bank, the best bank to put your money in as a banker is, as an individual, is...
It's Stanbic.
Right. Why?
Voted Kenya's best private bank, and looking at how you can bank in a way that is seamless and how you can enjoy the many elements that come along with that. So we've looked at banking easily. We've looked at banking joyfully. And today we're looking at building a legacy. So what are the things that you can do with your money? Where can you put it? Where can you place it to make sure that you are actually building a legacy for yourself? Stanbic gives you those options, whereby it's making sure that you can have seamless banking, all your transactions in one place if you need them to be, and making sure really that you can build something for yourself in the future. With your hard-earned cash, where are you going to put it? There are people who are going to be there to be able to walk you through the journey of where you can actually place your funds that will actually give you the best results and give you the best yield in terms of that investment. So it is building a legacy with Kenya's #1 private bank.
Okay. We also talk about where else to put your money, and you're thinking about retirement. You're young, you're getting older, you're thinking, okay, retirement is very far. Yeah, it's far, yeah, but it'll come. Or you're looking at, you're in your 50s, you're looking about retirement is actually coming. Where do you take your money for retirement? You put it at the Taifa Pension Fund. And we've been talking about it, www.taifapensionfund.com. Taifa Pension Fund. I got it.
Well done.
Taifa Pension Fund. What is it? It is an umbrella pension scheme designed for employers, defined contribution pension fund managed by Kenya's largest administrator of pension funds, CPF Financial Services. It accepts NSSF Tier 2 statutory contributions and promises a wide range of benefits to both employers and employees. What are the benefits to the employer? Let me tell you. Cost savings. In addition to saving for retirement, members of Taifa Pension Fund enjoy group life cover. You have last expense cover. You have chronic illness benefit and permanent total disability benefit at a subsidized cost. That is number one. It's very easy to onboard into the Taifa Pension Fund as an employer. It takes just one business day to transfer an employer's retirement scheme to the Taifa Pension Fund. Our online portal and 24/7 customer support make the process seamless. Why else? Optimal returns, a diversified investment portfolio, years of investment experience. The fund promises optimal returns to members. Now, what else are you thinking about? Okay, you're an employer. Go to Taifa Pension Fund. You're an employee. Tell your employer, put my money in Taifa Pension Fund. Yes? That is where we are putting money. Okay, where are we putting our infrastructure? Public-private partnerships. People absolutely have conversations about PPPs, public-private partnership. It is public. It is privatization. It is partnership. It is privatization. Public procurement. PPP, public procurement proposal. PIP, public investment proposal. Privately initiated partnership. What are those things? Very much confusion. The Director General of the Public-Private Partnership Directorate in the National Treasury is Christopher Keregwa, and he's our guest. Christopher, good morning.
Good mornings.
How are you doing?
Good, very good. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Keeping well?
Very well.
We're going to talk a lot about PPPs, just seeking to understand PPPs from you guys who actually handle PPPs. But before we get there, City will welcome you with the day's proverb. But before he does, we saw announcements a couple of months ago that you have been appointed as an ambassador.
Yes, my friend.
So why are you still here? Why are you still doing PPPs?
We're on the route. We're en route to Washington. There were a few hitches towards the end in terms of contracting, but I think we've got into a settlement. Within the next 10 days, I should be on the way to Washington.
Did you hear they have a new president?
Yes, I had. It was an interesting day yesterday.
Just checking.
So what is your role for those who have been living under a rock? What's your role coming in the next 10 days?
In Washington?
Yes.
So I'll be the Deputy Chief of Mission in Washington, D.C. And also I've been asked to lead the National Treasury as a chief representative of the National Treasury in Washington.
So you'll be dealing with those Bretton Woods institutions.
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed.
All right.
To scale up financing for Kenya.
Very
and
good.
also investments.
Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
City,
Yes,
the proverb.
very good. Our proverbs for this week are from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Okay.
Moving forward, our proverbs will be from Africa south of the
Sahara.
A message from a dead man is poison for the one who doesn't respect it.
A message from a dead man is poison to
No,
the one who doesn't respect it.
Yes.
What's your interpretation of this one?
It's interesting. I'll change the dead man to an angel. When the angels speak to you and you do not listen, be wary of the outcome. Yeah. So I'll say it's critical to listen to the silent voices that are sent to you. Yeah. To ensure that you don't miss the bigger picture. What's your thought?
Perfect. I cannot add to what you've said because it is absolutely true.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Listen to the small little voices. And those ones are usually on the left side. The one on the right.
Those are the crazies.
Sondo, I listen to you.
Please, let's stick with that.
Agreed.
Nice one. Nice one.
City Pole.
Don't even.
Oh, no. By the way,
I will listen to her.
it is actually wise for you to listen to her. Yes.
And so you listen to him.
No, so I will listen to you because I know you've listened to her. And Eric will listen to all of us. Yes.
So now, the Directorate of PPPs at the National Treasury. It was established a couple of years ago. We heard of your appointment and we've heard of PPPs. What are PPPs? What is a PPP and what is not PPP?
Okay, a PPP it's a framework. It's a framework to scale up investments, public investments. Generally, if a state has a lot of money, a state is very rich, for example, like Saudi Arabia, you don't need PPPs because you can just go build infrastructure. You've got enough resources to do the investment that you require in a country. However, knowing that the environment we play in Kenya, and not just Kenya actually, because you look at Saudi Arabia, as I've just talked about, they are now looking to get also into PPPs, which was not the case in the past because of the limited resources which are available. In Kenya, PPPs actually, I'll say this, they did not start 3 years ago when I started. You just had more noise about PPPs and you got to understand more PPPs, obviously, when we changed the legislative framework in 2020. However, PPPs have been there in Kenya since 2009. The only challenge that you had is nothing got implemented. There were no projects that got implemented until actually between 2009 and 2020. Only one project had been implemented. I'm not sure you're going to rate that as success. But clearly, in about 10 years, having one project, it was not working.
One implemented. How many signed?
There was one other that was signed, but we ended up having to cancel it.
Okay.
Yeah, which was the Nakuru Summit Road. So PPPs is a framework to enable that private sector to come support government in a framework whereby both parties win. Yeah, to develop public infrastructure. Now, PPPs require the projects have to have commercial viability. Yeah, because the private sector, they're not coming to build these projects because they love our country. They're coming to these projects purely to make money. Yeah. Now, what is the role of the directorate and what is the role of government? The role of government is to ensure that these projects are done at an affordable rate. They bring value for money. And also a very critical portion is to ensure the environmental social impact analysis of each project is well captured. Yeah, that is actually a much better approach even compared to the normal public procurement. Most PPPs actually require to access funding from commercial banks. And actually that's over 99% of all PPPs have to access money from commercial banks, and commercial banks ensure that the ESIA, which is environmental social impact analysis, are done as per Equator principles, which was a set of rules which was set by very many international banks. and also IFC to set up the standards of what is expected on each project, especially to ensure that there's social acceptability, and you mitigate any environmental impacts each project brings to the table.
Okay. So this private sector company is coming into a PPP and looking at commercial viability. It wants to make its money back. What does it bring to the table?
So the private companies actually bring the capital.
So they bring the money.
They bring the money.
Okay.
Yeah. So the private, okay, this is what happens. On a typical PPP, the priorities of the PPP are set by the government, not by the private sector. So we come up and select the projects we want to do as a government, and list those projects, do the feasibility studies. After we do the feasibility studies, send the projects to market and get the private parties to participate. So the private parties bring in the expertise to build the project. They bring the expertise to run the project, and they also bring to the table the financing for the vehicles to build the infrastructure.
So then by design, a PPP contractor, shall we call them contractor or partner?
Partner is better.
So a PPP partner will run this thing.
Absolutely.
They'll build it, they'll have to run it. And during that running period is when they're recouping their investment.
Absolutely.
And by charging the public for using the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. You mentioned that they have to use commercial banks, for example. That would give the illusion that they're getting money from a local entity. But you've also said that this private party who comes at the end of this brings their own funds. So how does the commercial bank, I'm assuming it's a local one, how does that come into play in this whole process?
Thanks. Very good question, and do. What happens on each PPP, the private party goes to raise, there's an equity portion where they bring their own money, which is actually hard cash they bring in from their accounts, which is normally about 30%, and they finance 70% from banks. Yeah. So the banks are normally commercial banks, but what we do as a treasury, we ensure that the private party gets the most affordable financing available. In some cases, we also facilitate bringing them blended finance, like working with partners like MIGA, which is part of the World Bank. We will help the private sector lower the cost of financing and also get extended tenures to make the projects more affordable.
Okay.
So it's not local bank.
Actually, the preference should always be local banks, and the reason being, you ensure that the financing is done mostly in local currency, so you do not transfer exchange rate risks to the consumers.
Okay. So 70% of that is now the loan.
Yes.
And most preferably being sourced from a bank or a consortium of banks locally.
Absolutely.
And so that when we're paying, it's all shilling denominated.
Absolutely.
Through and through. And the 30% is their equity, is the money that they put in.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But the thing I'd like to add to that,
Yes.
we've got a very big challenge, and we've been working actually very well with a number of the local banks to scale them up on project finance, because it's not an area many of them have been focusing on. Yeah, so you'll see the likes of like the bank you earlier mentioned, like Stanbic. Stanbic has a very good project finance team. So you'll see Stanbic doing a lot of PPP transactions compared to many other local banks.
Okay.
What is it about what is it about project financing that makes it different from the sort of financing that we are used to? Like, we understand the mortgages. You want to buy a house, you want to build a house, that sort of thing, we understand. In essence, I'm asking, this term, project financing, what does it actually mean? Because it seems to be at the heart of the finance that is required for many of these projects. And what we think it is and what it is seem to be different.
Very, very good questions. Let me start. Project financing, you look at the project on a standalone. Yeah, it's similar. So you look at a project and look at the viability. So the project in a standalone basis needs to generate enough cash flows for it to pay for itself. Yeah, a typical loan, like for example, a credit card. Yeah, all they look is it's your pay slip, and they give you a card. In a project finance, for example, you're going to build a road. You need to do traffic studies. The banks need to be comfortable with those studies, that you do. Yeah, you need to look at the environmental impact. Right? What are you cutting off trees as you build this road? Yeah. If you're cutting off trees, are you replacing them? Yeah. Equator principles actually require you to do that. Yeah. Now, many private parties will even attempt to avoid some of these things. Yeah. But it's the role of people in roles like mine to ensure that these things are implemented in a proper fashion, and also the contracting authorities.
Right.
Okay, our law and the approach to PPPs. How many ways can a PPP be initiated and contracted according to our law?
To our law. So there are 4 methods of procurement. The first one is a competitive method. The second one is restricted. The third one is direct procurement, and the fourth one is a PIP, which has raised a lot of attention in this country recently.
So let's go by each. Competitive. What does that mean? That we have to advertise and say we want to build a dam in Karimeno, and this dam will serve X number of people, and it'll, and then you're inviting people to bid for it. Yeah.
Yep.
And then what happens? So how do you go through now the process of evaluating?
No. You started the other way around. You first start with a feasibility study.
Okay.
Because we first need to ensure that it has got for a PPP. A PPP is not a social infrastructure. You need to ensure that it's got commercial viability.
Okay.
So there are loads of studies that need to be done to ensure the commercial viability, that when you advertise it, it will attract the level of investments, and investors can see that they can recoup their money in the period set in the concession period. Yeah. So on a competitive process, which is similar to a restricted and also direct procurement, and I'll explain the difference between the three. You start off with a feasibility study, evaluate the project, look at the volumes. Yeah, because many of these things, like for example, if it's a road infrastructure, you look at the traffic volumes that will use the roads. You look at the affordability. Will tolling be, if you're going to toll the road, will people afford 200 shillings on tolling, right? So you look at the entire scope, and then look at the environmental impact. Are you going to be cutting through? You're going to be cutting trees, like I said. Are you going to be cutting through a national park? Remember the challenges we had with the SGR, but that was not a PPP.
Yeah.
So you look at the various aspects of the road, and once you get a feasibility study and the project is feasible, you go to market. Yeah. But before you go to market, you first the contracting authority. So let's say, for example, it's Kenya. Kenya comes to they run the feasibility study. We support them during the process. They submit it now formally to the directorate. We take it to the committee. The PPP committee reviews it, approves it, or sends it back. Thereafter, when they go to market, and after they go to market, and we get the responses, we evaluate them. After evaluating those responses, we take them to the PPP committee back again. Thereafter, we approve it for negotiations. It goes for negotiations.
So the negotiations haven't started. There have been two approvals.
Approval
First,
for the feasibility.
There's approval of the feasibility study, and then you tell the contract, all right, go ahead and advertise.
Absolutely.
And then they receive bids. They bring the bids again to you for approval.
Absolutely.
And so what are you approving at this particular point?
So you receive the bids are evaluated. So the evaluation outcome is approved by the PPP committee. Once that evaluation outcome is approved and the selected preferred bidder is selected, it now goes to
back to Kenya.
It goes back to Kenya and the PPP directorate for negotiations.
Okay.
So a negotiation is conducted. The negotiation outcome goes back to the committee for approval. Thereafter, the PP committee approves the negotiation outcome and the concession agreement. Then it goes back to Kenya and goes to the AG for concurrence before it's signed off.
So two things here. One is that Kenya did not do the evaluation. It is a PPP committee that's doing the evaluation.
No, it's both. The evaluation is done through a project. There's a project team between Kenya, various government institutions that come together to evaluate.
So all of them are involved.
Yes.
It's more not just one entity, not
No,
just
no.
the entity that is involved in evaluating.
No.
So there are others. The directorate is involved, the
Contracting
ministry,
authority.
the
Absolutely.
contracting authority, and all.
Yeah.
Okay. When you go back now into all those negotiations, and then you go to the National Treasury, at what point does the public get to know that this thing is happening?
So during the feasibility study stage, when a project goes through, on the competitive side,
Yes.
an ESI is done, environmental social impact analysis. Yeah, the social impact analysis involves stakeholder management and public participation. Yeah, that's on a competitive process. Yeah, so the public gets to know about it. And if you look at the Nakuru Mall Summit, remember the road?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of public participation. Yeah, across the entire corridor. Yeah, during the what do you call this? When the project was going through project evaluation. Yeah.
Okay. This all takes place during competitive. That's so when you talk about restricted, direct, and PIP, do you have the element of public participation like you do with the competitive process?
So for the other two, restricted and direct, they go through the same process because you start
Okay.
with the feasibility study,
Right.
which includes the ESIA.
Yeah.
Right. But now when you get to a PIP, now this is the one that gets a bit more complex. Yeah. PIP. So we receive. Actually, let me say this before I joined Treasury. Yeah. My team used to receive PIPs like I'll say you've heard that phrase. When you throw spaghettis on the wall, you see how many can stick.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the arrangement.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone was just throwing a lot of.
Everybody was just PIPs were landing at the directorate all the time.
Eric, you never sent one.
I should have, eh?
These guys have
It's
a
too
wrong
late.
company.
It's too late.
Yeah.
So no, let me we're receiving a lot of PIPs, and so many of them actually don't stick.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, what we did on the 2020 law, we created a project review fee, right? And the reason for that is each PIP comes with a stack of documents which is almost this size. Yeah. So imagine you're having government officials are constantly just reviewing documents, and most of them will not stick on the wall.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was getting back to your question.
So much
Yeah.
time spent
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So you're spending a lot of time. So what we did is we created that which deterred a lot of many of these PIPs. Yeah. And PIPs, because you have no idea if it's going to go through or not. You do not start with the project, public participation at the beginning. So you first receive it. If it makes sense, right, through the first level of evaluation, we tell the project company to go now do a proper feasibility study, right, which is called the project development stage. Yeah? During the project development stage, they're also supposed to do ESIA on their own. Right, and what they do is they check the social acceptability. Now, because of the challenges we have faced recently, especially on the transactions, when you look at JKI, you look especially JKI,
Yeah.
normally we'll do the feasibility, we'll do the public participation or public accessibility, during the third stage, immediately after negotiations, before you award any transaction, right? Now, there's something that we've seen that we can actually improve the process to get much more public acceptance on what we do, is to bring this element that we're planning to take to the third stage to ensure it's completed in the second stage.
Which one?
The public participation.
Okay.
Yeah. So during the feasibility study, when the private sector company is going to do the feasibility study, we have actually strengthened the process, and we want to actually legislate it that during the second process of evaluation, there's a strong there's a strong environmental social impact analysis is done, which includes a public participation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
One more, then we take a break.
Yeah. You talk about the different processes. So from the outside looking in, and you don't really get to look in really, but just from what you've explained is that there's so many levels that this thing has to go through. By the time it comes out, one would assume that due diligence has been done, the feasibility studies have been carried out, every check that needs to be made has already been done. So, it's worth its weight by the time it comes through the process. And if that is the case, then why do we have such few cases of these projects that have actually been carried out and implemented?
That's actually the best question I've had. Let me say why. It's actually a challenge. This is not a challenge for Kenya. No, let me tell you, including Nigeria.
Of course.
Yeah?
Let's not go there, but okay.
It's all across our lovely continent. When you look at all contraction authorities, 99%, even ministries, the number one preference for them to implement projects is using budget.
Yes, budget.
You want to ask exchequer?
Donor and
Yes.
donors.
Exactly, donor funding. So where does PPP come in? Bottom
Yeah.
on the tail, right? So with that in place, this is what. So many people, what do they refer to PPP for implementation? Actually, not the best projects.
Yeah.
So do they have commercial viability?
Maybe not.
Thank you. Majority do not have commercial viability. Now, as you've asked, when very many implemented, if you look at it, remember we talked about the success rate. We had only had between 2009 and 2020 was
One.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've done about 10 now. Yeah. 10 projects.
Huh?
Yeah. 10 projects.
Between 2020 and now.
My friend, we've not been sleeping.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now, let me go here. The fiscal space in Kenya right now has what made now people look at PPPs a bit differently. Yeah. And I would like to give a lot of credit to our CS, our new CS, John Buddy. Yeah. And obviously the PPP committee. Yeah. Because the focus, because right now, if you've got a commercially viable project, and I can give you a number of them that we borrowed actually. So we eat our fiscal space, yeah, on commercially viable projects. And when we go to social projects, like for example, health, hospitals, education, where's the money to do it?
Ikoko barabara.
Which was or a very good project, which especially like you look at the ICT sector, a lot of the ICT projects are actually commercially viable on a standalone basis. But you also need to be careful about this on PPPs. Is also on ICT projects. You need to be careful on security projects to ensure how you mitigate data breaches and get
controls.
The controls put in place. Yeah, so that private data does not go into
individual hands.
Individual hands.
Or private companies' hands.
Absolutely.
There's also the other bit of mortgaging the country. PPPs are long term. So this road is owned by Kirego and Company. The other one is owned by City and Eric. The other one is owned by Ndu and Her Royal Highness for 30 years, 25 years. So does Kenya own anything, Bwana? It's just going. Let's take a break. 25 minutes to 8. The Director General of the Public-Private Partnership Directorate at the National Treasury, Christopher Kiregwa, is our guest this morning. I think this will be the final interview before you move on to Washington. It should be. Don't give anyone else.
Somebody else.
Why are you refusing me to come back again?
Okay, that's a good answer.
That's a good way. That's a very good way. Sitting. This Saturday, people are meeting at the Garland Mall in Parklands.
Yeah.
Between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m.
That's correct.
This is what event?
The official study in Ireland Fair. That's what it is. And you might ask yourself, why? Why do you want to go to Ireland? Well, choice is up to you really, but perhaps you need to listen to what is available before you determine what it is you think is your preferred choice. 3 reasons will be given for why you should attend the study in Ireland Fair. Well, one, that fair will give you direct access to top universities. You will discover Ireland's career opportunities. When it comes to matters of visa, how you actually get there, yes, you will get expert advice on visa requirements and guidance. Now, the thing you also need to do is to understand all these things and to benefit, you need to register. www.cradle.com. Once you register, then you'll receive an invitation. Why? Because entry is by invitation only.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's free. It's not a registration now as you go and pay some money. No. It's free registration.
It is free.
But entry is by invitation only. 24 minutes to 8. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your
I know
day.
mko na talents like hii September endelea